Hello and welcome to Get It Off Your Chest, a What I Wish I Knew guide from girlfriends who have lived, fought, and survived breast cancer. My name is Andy, and I am proud to be the host of this amazing group of women. Our intention for this podcast is to simply be a tool that women struggling with breast cancer can use to find the help and support that they need during times when they may feel incredibly alone. Joining me today are three awesome women who are going to give a bit of an introduction and background in why a resource like this is so essential. Dr. Corinne Jordan, Audra Shanneman, and Amber Melby are all residents of New Ulm, Minnesota, who have worked together to create a strong bond between the women facing the hardest battles of their lives. But I'm only the intern, so let's see what they have to say.
My name's Amber Melby. I am a breast cancer survivor, going on 7 years since I was diagnosed. Was diagnosed with invasive lobular carcinoma when I was 40 years old. Have a strong family history. My dad has 3 sisters. All 3 of them have had breast cancer. One has had breast cancer twice. So I was being screened at the high-risk breast clinic up at Abbott. That involved an MRI every 6 months, alternating with a 3D mammogram. And in June of 2015, they found the cancer. So at that time, I had a double mastectomy. They had found a small amount in my sentinel lymph node, which bought me chemotherapy. So I had 16 rounds of chemotherapy over the next 6 months, 16 rounds for what's called the red devil, which is the red devil. It literally is red, and it is really, really hard, and you take it every 2 weeks for 8 weeks. After the second treatment, your hair starts to fall out, and made me very sick. My first treatment, I ended up in the emergency room that night, so very hard. And then that was followed by 12 weeks of what's called Taxol. And during that time, I talked a lot about the darkness that I experienced. So I would say the other word we'd call that now is just depression. I'm a nurse, is my professional background. So nurses are the worst patients, which means I refuse to take anything for that depression, darkness. I was just in a bad spot mentally, but just thought I already have too many chemicals running through my body, so I'll just battle through it. But that was a rough time, and it included some rough nights in my room, thinking that I'd convinced myself that my family would be better off without me. I was never going to be myself again. Just some suicidal thoughts. And I remember laying there and thinking about all of the people that were helping us through that time. Community, family, friends, neighbors, something small like showing up at our house with a hot dish, we call it here in Minnesota, to helping with our children who were young at the time, supporting my husband. My mother-in-law moved here from Arizona to live with us to help take care of me and my family. Just so many wonderful things that people were helping us with at the time. And I called it the light in the darkness. And it felt like I was looking down a dark tunnel and I could see this bright light at the end. And that's the only way I can really describe what it felt like, that they were pulling me through this tunnel. I was hanging onto this rope. That's how I picture it. And after I got through a lot of that, the worst part of that, I just remember thinking, when I felt like I was on the other side, I wanted to find a way to pay that forward to other people. Other survivors, other families that were going through the same thing. And so I had this idea of, I didn't know what it was exactly going to be, but I was going to do something. And at the same time, one of my dad's 3 sisters that I mentioned that had breast cancer, her name was Brenda Plinky. We called her Aunt B. And she was in the middle of her fight. She had been battling metastatic breast cancer at that time, off and on for 13 years. And she was just a light to all who knew her. She was just inspirational. She was just a joy. And she, so I came up with the name Be the Light kind of in her honor. And at that time we started just giving general donations out to people. And we were saying we're kind of shining light in the darkness. So anyone going through a rough time, any sort of cancer, things like that, someone who lost like a spouse suddenly or something like that, we'd do a $250 donation. That was in 2016, so she was alive at the time and got to be part of that. She ended up passing away in 2018 when she was 58 years old. And at that time, we decided to start really focusing on breast cancer survivors and their families, since it was such a close cause to our family. So we started fundraising and doing the same thing, general donations to women and their families. We had our first big fundraiser in 2019, and we had to choose kind of what's our main mission we're raising money for. So we came up with the concept Hope Getaways. Aunt Brenda's kind of tagline was never give up hope, and you'll see that through throughout all of our marketing materials and our logo. So we came up with Hope Getaways. So our thought was to kind of a Make-A-Wish concept where we would gift women who either were in the breast cancer treatment or right after, that they could go on whatever trip they choose with their families to kind of a healing journey, to forget the word cancer. So we did that in 2019, had our first fundraiser, and then COVID hit 2020. So we have not been able to see the fruits of that labor yet, but we granted 4 Hope Getaways to some local women, and the first one will be this July. Sarah and her husband are going to Peru to climb Rainbow Mountain, so we're anxiously awaiting getting to watch that.
It's been a long time coming.
So in the process, during COVID, we had to come up with some, alternative solutions. I mean, so now you add women who are still going through the same treatment, sitting in those chemo chairs, but don't have their family and friends sitting next to them and being able to support them, and just even being more isolated with COVID. So we started what we called Relight Retreats here at our office space, and started kind of really just trying to bring women together. One of the areas that we had identified was missing in rural Minnesota was support groups specific to the things that only breast cancer survivors can talk to each other about. Nipple tattooing, losing your breasts, losing your hair. I mean, just a lot of things. Some of it also other cancer survivors could relate to, like losing your hair, but there's something more intimate about it for a woman, I think, especially women who are literally losing their body parts that identify them as a woman. So there was a gap there, and bringing women together was needed to focus. So the word we use a lot on our again, marketing materials is connecting. So we're trying to find ways to connect women with each other, with the resources that Be the Light can offer, and some other programs now that we've partnered with in the community, like Survival Fitness. And just getting these survivors in the same room, I think, is really 3/4 of the work, because that is just organically creating this little support group where they start chatting about, did you have this treatment? Did you have this side effect? Did you have this, did you have to do radiation? If so, did you have this happen? Things like that. And so it's just been really rewarding, and to see it come full circle that way, where I think what we thought Be the Light was going to be, and what it has kind of evolved to be, even with kind of been a blessing with COVID, I would say, because being able to send a few women on Hope Getaways, yes, that's wonderful, but being able to impact 30 families locally in the last few years with these programs, and these women saying things like, I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't come to a Relight retreat and met this new best friend I have that lives out of town, but we connected and now we're good friends, or things like that. So that's been really cool. So Relight retreats is one thing we offer. At Christmas time, we give away what we call Hope handbags. So it's about bags that are valued at about $500 worth of gift cards to local businesses. Kind of a win-win. We support the local businesses, but also women get some extra resources to help them right around the holidays. And then we got connected with Newham CrossFit here a year and a half ago, and together kind of created this program called Survival Fitness. So Coach Brandy Toomer out there has this 7 or 8 week program that we've done 3 different sessions now. We just finished our 3rd. Had about 10 women participate each time, some of the same. One lady, Marsha, has done all 3. I think there's a few others that have been in 1 or 2, but so it's one session of yoga, 2 sessions out at CrossFit. So it's strength training mixed with some kind of yoga, self-care, stretching. And we have a mix of ladies, some like myself who've been out of treatment for a while, some that are currently in treatment, some that are a year or 2 out. And that's also been, we love the exercising. So I participated in this last class and it was so cool to see. It was fun. It's just, you have like this whole new group of friends and you get to see them 3 times a week and chat about, how's your family? How's your weekend? How are your kids? But so the strength training has been really cool to see. And Brandy does an awesome job of teaching women like functional exercise, she calls it. So, when you're doing a squat, it's like, it's the same movement that you do when you go to pick up your laundry basket or whatever. So how do we build back the strength and those muscles and all of that is lost when you go through chemotherapy and stuff? So, Be the Light completely funds those programs for women. So that has been a way that, like I said, we can partner with other places in the community to keep providing those support groups and connections.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
No, there's so much. I could talk all day, but
I feel like
I'll stop there.
Evolved a lot since its initial induction. We've had to change kind of the focus of the program.
Right.
And how long have you been a part of it?
I'm Dr. Jordan. I've been in the community for 3 years. I had a private practice with a number of other general surgeons in the cities, and I was in charge of a lot of the breast programs in Alina. A few years ago, I got a grant to look at the impact of yoga and as kind of a post-op care plan for some of my breast cancer patients. And the thought process was that getting that mind-body connection after your mind has been at war with your body through the cancer treatments and experience was definitely something that could be a positive impact. And then the yoga and the stretching would also help with the symptoms that people were experiencing as they're going through treatment. And I taught at Gilda's Club, and I found that the most impact that these women got was the 15 minutes before class and the 15 minutes after class, when they would exchange numbers, exchange stories, check in with each other, and then make dates to go to chemo with each other, and then out to coffee afterwards. And that was really impactful. And that's kind of where the green light went on. And I was like, this is something that we need to replicate here. And that's actually how the idea for Survival Fitness was born. That we could get women together, not necessarily in a support group setting, but a more empowering setting, having them do the things and then also connecting. And it's been an amazing impact, I think, for this community and for the women that are going through the program. So we're really excited that we've gotten that off the ground and hope to continue it. But yeah, I moved down here a few years ago, and just like Amber was saying, there's really a lot of opportunity for support groups here and just getting women connected. And I think when we get women connected, they do amazing things. So I'd like to see more of that happening. And I'm a little bit of a dreamer, so I have a ton of ideas, and Amber has to reel me in most of the time.
I'm not good at that either. I want to be the same.
Now I'm like, Amber's gonna reel you in?
No,
right?
We knew this was our issue from the start.
Yes, Amber invited me to be on her board, and I think the one thing I was worried about is that I'm going to be all over the place, and she's going to have to help me focus. And I think we rely on Dr. Grubner to be the person that tethers us to reality, also as our treasurer. It's
right.
Important. Yeah.
Well, I'm Audra Shanneman, and I was a patient of Dr. Jordan's in 2020, September of 2020, when I was diagnosed during a regular mammogram, and no real family history. I'm 53 years old, overweight, just thought I was doing everything okay. Certainly didn't expect to have breast cancer. But I've been a part of Be the Light programs. I have worked with Dr. Jordan on getting better, and she even gave me her cell phone number. So that's pretty special when your surgeon gives you your cell phone number. But I'm engaged in this whole podcast thing because I agree there's a lot of things to talk about. And I think sometimes there's these taboo topics that people don't like to talk about. Maybe there's some shame involved, or there's some fear, or you may seem weak or whatever. But I think the more information you have, the better you feel about it. And also with technology, I would rather hear it from a girlfriend than go to WebMD or the internet and get wrong information. So the other night, you missed it, Amber, at Survival Fitness, Tammy Helget came, or I don't know if we can use names, but one of our people, she brought up the question that she was given her options. And she wanted to know, what did everybody think, or what did you do, and what were your, what options were you given? And I have to remember that I took my husband and a very good girlfriend in with me, and so we heard all the options and made a decision. But some women go in by themselves, and that's a lot to take in. And so to have a support group, or to have girls that are, again, everybody's different, but they can enter into that circumstance and go, okay, so how do you make a decision like that? Yeah. And do you really want to go have mammograms for the rest of your life on just one? Right. Right. So that was Survivor Fitness the other night, and it was a lot. I think for some of us it was a trigger. We remember being in that room and thinking, oh God, I remember that feeling, of what do you do? You But then I remember saying to this woman Friday night, when you make the decision and you have peace about it, that's what I want you to experience, because then you've made your decision and you now move to the next decision. And I think my whole thing with my journey was just put one foot in front of the other. Just keep walking to every doctor appointment, for every phone call, for all the lab work, for everything, just one foot in front of the other. And here you are.
Yeah, we try and do a really good job with shared decision making when we give you all those options. But you're experiencing a trauma. You've been given this horrible diagnosis. We've shaken you to your core, and then we bring you in for this hour-long visit where we throw all this medical term at you,
and you show us horrible pictures.
Show you horrible pictures, and they're like, okay, so what do you want to do?
None of it, and just run out to the hospital.
I want to do none of those things.
Ice cream. Yeah.
Well, the knee-jerk reaction is like, take them both off. I never want to deal with this. I'm just trying to survive. And what we try and do as providers is let you know that this is not a terminal diagnosis in most cases. You need to think of this through the lens of being 10, 15 years into survivorship. What is your body image going to be like? You can talk to a woman about body image for 25 years and never make any sort of progress. And so it's really difficult as a provider to be in that space, trying to assess what your value system is, try and guide you through this trauma. And then we've done studies that say that, you will receive about 50% of what I'm saying in these visits.
Sure.
20% of that is going to be accurate. So you're
nice.
really not getting much of that in. And then your partner, caregiver, other set of ears that's there, same thing, about 20% of recall. It's a life-changing decision, and you're getting just a little tad of the information. So girlfriends are very helpful in navigating that.
Well, what a blessing, as you're saying that, and to the point of what we're saying about the having these connections and kind of built-in support groups. I mean, to be able to say to these 8 or 10 women that you've been with for the last 2 months that all have been through similar journeys, to just give a little bit of input. I mean, not that they're going to make the decision for her, but to be able to help. I mean, what a gift.
Yeah.
What a great support system for her in that real time.
Yep. That was really good.
Or even like, these are the things you should think about. I had one patient that gave me feedback that was like, if I had known that if I'm a stomach sleeper, that having reconstruction was going to be like sleeping on 2 tennis balls, I never would have done that. And I never thought to ask, are you a stomach sleeper? Like, that's a very important. So now I ask those things. But as we're going through the process, that's how you learn, right? So one of the best parts, I think, about my former practice is we had what was called a patient advisory council. And once a month, these women would come back and they would meet with us as providers and say, these are the things that you guys need to do better at. No one's talking to me about sexuality. No one's talking to me about fertility issues. No one's talking to me about all these other issues, because it's just not in our 1 hour of dialogue that we have set up to try and tether. But it's also really important information. So if I'm not giving you this information as your provider, I need to at least direct it or bring it up or say, these are the things you may want to look into. So that feedback's critical, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that's what this podcast is kind of aiming to do, obviously, is just be that resource for someone who is going through this and is going, okay, I'm going through this and it's not something that I can maybe really talk to a doctor about because maybe they don't really know or they don't have a really great solid answer that I want to hear, but it gives them an opportunity to go, okay, this is someone who's been through it, this is someone who will understand this actual situation I'm in right now. And I think also too, it's a resource for people to go, okay, this is something that I could come up against in the future and struggle with, and I might not be experiencing it now, but this is what some people are dealing with at this stage in this cancer, and be something that they can prepare for a little bit more too. So I think that's something to look forward to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not weird, right? All those questions are normal. I had one patient ask me once, what do I do after I've just gotten a chemo infusion and I pee in the toilet and my dog drinks out of the toilet?
Wow.
I have no idea.
Right?
But it sounds terrible, right? Maybe we should look into that. But, now the oncologists are like, this is what you need to make sure. You need to put the toilet lid down after you pee, after you've had chemotherapy, so your dog doesn't drink out of the toilet. And that was part of our patient education materials. But without this feedback, we don't go down that road.
Yeah.
So it's important, to your point, to talk about those things that may make us feel vulnerable or shame or it's
just
normal.
those crazy questions.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, back again, even 7 years ago, when there was, I was Googling. That's always fun.
Dr.
So it's
Google.
dangerous, Dr. Google. And then somebody would say, oh, besides my Aunt Brenda, who was helping me at the time, but again, different. Someone say, oh, so-and-so had breast cancer. I'm messaging these random strangers on Facebook.
Right.
Can I ask you questions? And I get those all the time now. I don't know if you've gotten them yet. People, I have no idea.
I call you.
Yeah. But I mean, people, it shouldn't be that way. It's hard to have those conversations about, like you said, the topics that you don't want to talk about, but you need somebody to answer these questions.
And let's be real honest. You're right. Other people can't make those decisions for you, but even when you hear yourself asking those questions, you hear your values come out or your fears come out, and then that person responds, with, well, this was my experience. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, we get to look at you and go, okay, yeah, they're a little bit further down the road. Okay. Like your big sister in cancer,
right?
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember talking, maybe there's no TMI in this conversation, but I remember asking my cousin who had breast cancer, I mean, are we ever going to have sex again? I mean, I was only 40 years old. Like, what's happening here? And that's not really something I even want to ask a family member, but I had so many questions about intimacy. Who am I going to talk to about it? Right. My doctor, my uncle.
Yeah, who's your husband going to talk to about it?
Who's my husband going to talk to about it? What are those resources? There are none. We've talked a lot about.
This topic comes up with almost every patient. Everybody's asking that same question, but they're not talking to each other.
No.
And if they're not bringing it up with their provider, it's coming up with some nurse in a survivorship visit who is not the one to have that conversation.
And the nurse wouldn't know necessarily the ins and outs of, what the actual answers to those, and don't have that personal experience about it. Mm-hmm. I had Dr. Proso, wonderful oncologist, not someone I'm going to talk to about those kind of things. Right. So,
and now that's on the podcast.
And now,
great doctor, but don't talk to him about those kind of things.
I mean, God bless. He's retired now. I'm sure he's heard it all. But, there needs to be these platforms so we can talk about it and normalize it.
And I couldn't agree more. Thank you for listening, and join us next time to talk about hair loss, a topic that holds a lot of emotions and experiences for women battling breast cancer. This is Get It Off Your Chest.